composed of seven of the world's advanced economies, including Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, and the United States of America, as well as the European Union. This year, Japan is the host country. Let's bring in Dr. Satoru Nagao, non-resident fellow at the Hudson Institute. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Let's start the Global Affairs Insider. After the world pandemic, how important is the G7 summit in world politics today?
Okay. The G7 is a group of influential Western democratic countries. So in this, they can decide many things in the world affairs. That's true. But recently, the United Nations hasn't worked so well because not only the Western democratic countries, but also the Russia and China is included in the United Nations, and there is a rift of the opinion between two. So Western countries and Russia, China, so maybe they are competing each other and cannot decide anything. So under such kind of situation, the G7's influence is, well, the G7 can decide something, but the United Nations cannot decide anything. So that's why the G7 is more important and influential, I think. And in this case, after the pandemic, of course, rising price of the anything, especially the food, energy, it is affecting the price of anything. So that's why maybe this rising prices, how to deal with it, it's a very important issue. Especially the G7 focusing on how to get the support from the global south, rising prices of the oil and energy, the food. These issues are very important. So that's why after the pandemic, this issue is very important. But at the same time, this year, yeah, not only this year, every time the G7 can invite guest countries, and which country choose by the G7 as a guest country is very important. But the last three times, India has been invited. So when the United Kingdom was the host, they invite India. When the Germany as the host, they invite India. And this time, the Japan will be the host, and Japan will invite India. So there is a possibility in the future the G7 will include India as a member. So that is also the interesting part, I think. Yeah, recently the G7 Foreign Minister meeting has happened, and in the Pacific session, the emphasis the cooperation with India. So that's why indeed the situation is moving, I think.
Okay, Hiroshima came into spotlight because of World War II. Why and what message is being disseminated having Hiroshima as the venue for G7?
Hiroshima is maybe well known, the nuclear bomb has dropped. But at the same time, Hiroshima is the election area of the Prime Minister Kishida. So that's why this location, Hiroshima, has two meanings. One is the international one, and another one is domestic one. Internationally, of course, G7 will talk about nuclear proliferation or age of nuclear issue. So Kishida want to send the message, we will not use a nuclear weapon, or we should reduce nuclear weapon storage, or the but current situation, under current situation, indeed such kind of message is meaningful but meaningless. Why? Because the current situation is it looks like all great powers try to increase the nuclear weapon. Russia intimidating the Ukraine or NATO by using the word related with the nuclear weapon, or Russia try to deploy the nuclear weapon to Belarus. They have already done, I think. And North Korea tests missiles which can carry the nuclear warhead again and again. Or China is increasing the nuclear warhead to the 1,000 in 2030 or 1,500 in 2035. The 1,500 warhead is the same number of the U.S. nuclear warhead. U.S. has nearly 5,000, but strategic purpose nuclear warhead is 1,500. Russia also has the 1,500 strategic purpose nuclear warhead. Even if Russia has a 6,000 warhead, strategic purpose is limited to 1,500. So if China increased their nuclear warhead to the 1,500 level, all of the US, China, Russia has 1,500. Then under such kind of situation, if the Russia cooperates with China, the US will face 3,000 strategic purpose nuclear warhead in the future. So that is not good. So to maintain the nuclear deterrence, nuclear balance, of course, there's a possibility the US side need to increase nuclear warheads. So, and British is British in the public document, they have already expect such kind of situation, and there's a possibility they will increase the nuclear warhead. And so maybe France will follow, I think. And Iran will, there's a possibility Iran will possess a nuclear weapon. And if Iran possesses a nuclear weapon, the Saudi Arabia will possess a nuclear weapon. So under such kind of situation, we can expect it will happen, a nuclear arms race. So that's why because the Kishida's election area is Hiroshima, he want to emphasize the we should not leave vouch under the nuclear armed race. That is the meaningful message. But at the same time, why this is meaningless? Because this statement will not stop this nuclear armed race. So that's why I said this is meaningful and meaningless. But view from the domestic situation, this is the election area of the Prime Minister Kishida. So he need to express such kind of opinion to get support from voters. That's why we want to spread this message. So that is a domestic background. So this is a combine of the international situation and the domestic situation. Kishida will spread this message from the G7 in Hiroshima this year.
Well, everyone looks forward for a meaningful summit. But how will the G7 in Japan be different? What can we look forward for the G7 summit?
G7 Foreign Minister meeting has happened in 1 month before the G7 summit, and the statement published from the G7 Foreign Minister meeting is indicating what is an important topic in the G7 summit. And of course, when we check the topic, the first is we can find the issue, Russia's aggression in Ukraine and how to deal with it. But in this case, a very important issue is if China will provide Russia enough military support, especially the ammunition or howitzers, Russia could win. That's why this is very serious issue. And there is many indication that China has already agreed to provide weapons to Russia. Just after the Xi Jinping's visit to Moscow, the China's defense minister visit Moscow. So why? Because after the agreement between the Xi and Putin, the defense minister tried to materialize this promise. So there's a possibility China will support Russia by providing weapons. But China do not want to be the target of the U.S. economic sanction. That's why it will happen step by step, and this will be the little secret covert operation. So that's why view from G7 side, G7 want to delay this step. That is message to China: do not support Russia enough. Timing is very important. Now the spring comes and the summer will come. Ukraine's counter-offensive operation will start. So if just now the China support Russia, that's not good. But before the China start to support Russia, if the Ukraine get back the territory, situation is completely different. So G7 want to delay the China support to Russia. And this is first topic. But another topic is global south. How to support global south, or how to get the support from the global south country, is very important. Because recently G7's influence is limited. Compared with the past, G7's influence is limited because economic rise of the country in the global south, like India, Mexico, Turkey, Brazil, South Africa, Nigeria, etc., etc. These are countries. In the past, we believe that these are very poor, the developing countries, but now they are influential. They are relatively rich countries. So without support from these countries, for example, if the G7 impose a sanction against Russia, Russia can trade with these countries, this global south country, and the economic sanctions effect will neutralize. So that is not good. So G7 need to get support from global south. But to get the support from global south, G7 need to know what happened in the global south. That's why this G7 foreign minister meeting, there are many sessions, including the Latin America session, or Indo-Pacific session, Middle East session, Central Asia session, etc., etc. So all of these issues are the topic of the G7 now. Because to get the global south, they need to know what happened in the global south and how to persuade them is needed. And the most important part to persuade the global south is how to maintain the price of oil and food. For developing countries, price of food means that price of life. Many people will die if they do not get enough food. And the energy prices is also same. To carry food, truck needs energy. So this means that energy resource prices affect the price of food. So that's why the supply chain of the food and energy and its prices are very important matter for the country belong to the global south. How to persuade? If G7 will be the benefit for the global south by maintaining the proper level of the prices of the food and energy, G7 can persuade them. Without this, it is very difficult.
Expect from the Prime Minister Kishida that he would be demonstrating during the G7 summit?
Japan is the host country of the G7 this year. Host country is the coordinator of the group, because G7 is each G7 members are influential and independent countries. So that's why the host country cannot order. But host country is a coordinator. So showing leadership related with the coordination, setting up agenda, prepare the proper places to talk, and manage each interest, and publish the statement as a joint statement. So That's why, so leadership of the Kishida is the Prime Minister of Japan, a host country. Maybe he need to show how to manage these powers. But that is his leadership. So indeed, the when we talk about the leadership, it looks like follow me type of leadership, but that's not true. Japan will be the coordinator, and that is a leadership this time.
On a final note, as a Japanese national, what are your personal expectations in the G7 summit?
Um, it will success, I think. But they need to deal with many difficult issues. So it is not easy to solve only in one meeting. So we should not expect too high or too much. But as a G7 summit, maybe they can exchange opinion in the face-to-face meeting, and especially the session. Many regional session is exists this time. This means that they can try to solve the one kind of the sentiment of the global south, I believe. For example, in the June 2022, the Indian foreign minister said the European has to grow out of the mindset that the Europeans' problem are world's problem, but world problem is not the Europeans' problem. That is a very important message. Indeed, such kind of feeling is spread in the global south, I think. That's why the G7 try to identify the voices of the global south and try to solve. Such kind of attitude itself is meaningful. So this time, the G7 will send the message. G7 is worried about the situation. It's global south, and the G7 will solve the problem with the global south together. Such attitude itself is meaningful, I think. So it will send this message in the G7, I think.
Dr. Satoru Nagao, non-resident fellow at the Hudson Institute, thank you.
Thank you.
This is Reyron del Rosario. That's the Global Affairs Insider. Follow us to our next episode only